The Super Eagles of Nigeria are now out of the race to qualify for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Anybody that still thinks otherwise is clearly delusional, because yet again they have come up short in another round of the World Cup qualifiers. Today's video is a review of the Super Eagles' two matches in the latest round of World Cup qualifiers at home to Rwanda and South Africa. Now, you've watched the two games. If you are familiar with my channel, you know what the current situation was before the two games. So let's get into it straight up. So for the first game, we played Rwanda at home and we needed to win, and that's what we did. We won 1-0. But that game, I was not impressed with the overall team play. In that game, it was not looking like a team that needed to win. It was looking like some of them were interested in fighting the Rwanda players. Meanwhile, the Rwanda players were simply trying to rile them up, and they were falling for it. Victor Osimhen got injured in the first half, I think, and then had to be subbed off, and it took Tolu Arokodare coming on to score the winner. I don't want to dwell on that game too much because I will still touch on certain parts of that game later in this video. Right. So that game got us the needed 3 points. It was a hard-fought 1-0 victory. But it's kind of ironic that I say hard-fought because, again, I didn't feel like those guys really wanted that win. And the overall team play in that game was not good enough for a team that was in 4th position in that group with the likes of Lesotho, Benin. A team that was in 4th position before that game kicked off. They did not play like a team that was in 4th position that desperately needed 3 points. But they got the win regardless. Now, we went to the South Africa game, which, by the way, I am recording just a few hours after, not even a few hours, roughly an hour after just watching that game as at the time of recording this video. Now, this was a game we also needed to win, right? So, we didn't have much time to prepare after playing Rwanda. We had to fly immediately to South Africa. Had just a day of training. And the game came, right? The game started. South Africa were really, really confident in the game. And then we conceded an own goal, unfortunately. And that's where I knew that it was over. And, guys, it's easy to say things in hindsight, but I need to remind you guys that this is a team that, outside of the 2-0 win against Rwanda, has not scored more than 1 goal in all the 8 games played so far. Right. So that means that we clearly have a goal scoring problem. Right. And then again, to add to that, in most of those games where we scored 1 goal, Victor Osimhen did not play at least 4 of them. And then he has also missed the South Africa game due to injury. Right. So Victor Osimhen has missed a huge part. So that means that without Victor Osimhen, we cannot score. That's what it means. We cannot score for a team that is supposed to be the giant of Africa, that is supposed to be one of the best generations of Super Eagles players ever. They cannot win a game without Victor Osimhen. Make of that what you will. Now, like I said, when we considered that first goal against South Africa, I just had a feeling that, the best we could get from that game was a draw. And it was over from then. I had already resigned to my fate. I just went to eat my dinner, so that after the game, it won't be that I cannot eat because certain people want to spoil my joy. It will not happen. I've already made peace with the fact that we are not going to the World Cup long before now. A lot of people who felt like we were still going to go to the World Cup were simply just being overly optimistic or not willing to tell themselves the truth. So, in that game against South Africa, I felt like the performance was better. In fact, I felt like that was our best performance in this entire qualifiers. But it was a performance that came too late, and a performance that came after an unfortunate own goal. And again, playing this kind of South Africa team, this current South Africa team at home, like that's playing them in South Africa, you cannot just win with a good performance. It will have to take something more. It will have to take you digging deep. Now, I saw that team trying to break down South Africa. I saw the intensity, especially after we equalized. I saw Calvin Bassey forcing a goal, literally going forward and finding that header. I saw that team playing with a lot of intensity that I had not seen in this entire qualifiers. I saw that against South Africa. But the thing that was lacking to me was the know-how, the tactical know-how, the technical know-how to break down that South Africa team. And it was not obvious to me. It just looked like a team that, they knew their situation, but they didn't know how to go about it. So after the goal, after we equalized, we started playing the ball quicker. We started trying to create chances, but it was hard. It was really hard. I don't think from a tactical point of view, they knew what to do. I felt like they only just were intense, or they raised the level of intensity because of the situation, because they knew they needed to win. So for me, if I'm to talk about the team play in that particular game, I think that the game against South Africa, we had the best performance in this entire qualifiers. And it's so funny to say, because imagine, that it was a game against that. Like, imagine leaving it this late. So, for me, overall team play in both games. In the game against Rwanda, we did not play like we needed it. In the game against South Africa, we had our best performance. That's how I saw it. But, we came up short, which I must say is not surprising. So, let me go to my next prompt. The best and worst performance in both games. Now, in the game against Rwanda, I have to say that, it's easy to say it was Tolu Arokodare because, when he came on, things sort of changed and he forced the goal. It was not a goal that came cheap. It was a goal very well fought for, because the Rwanda defense was resilient for the most part of that game. But I have to doff my hat to Benjamin Frederick, the young centre back, who, by the way, is a graduate of Moses Simon's Football Academy. I found out, which is something beautiful. Playing with your teammate being the owner of the academy who you graduated, who developed you, and you're playing with him in Super Eagles. That's a beautiful story in all of these disappointments for me, And even the fact that for him to play that game, the captain and the starting centre back Trustekong had to sit on the bench. So for me, I felt like he was comfortable throughout the game against Rwanda, and he has good ball playing qualities. He controlled the game. He controlled the parts of the game he could control quite well. So for me, he was the best player in the game against Rwanda, and especially because it was his first start. I can't remember if he had played before, but he played at the Unity Cup, but this was the first serious game and he started. So to be fair, Rwanda did not come to attack until we scored, so maybe that also took a lot of pressure off him. But I thought that even in the entire back line, he was also the standout player in that game. So the worst player in the game against Rwanda, I think that it is Hmm. I don't want to say this because I was advocating, I've been advocating for him for a long time. But if it's not one of the players in our midfield, then it will be Siridesa. Siridesa. If I'm pronouncing the name wrongly, well, it's not a Nigerian name or any name that I'm very familiar with. So pardon me. But you know the person I'm talking about. I think Siridesas looked lost, when he came on, and it was so strange. I felt like he had not played this kind of football, this kind of environment in a long time. You know, between his last game and the game against Rwanda, the game he played was in the Unity Cup in London against, Ghana and Jamaica, and that was on a London pitch. That was not an African qualifiers played in Africa. So Cyril Dessers, I think he has not been in the team for so long. So I just think for him to be comfortable playing in this environment, he needs some time, and I don't think he has that luxury of time. So I thought he looked lost. So if I can't really pick out anybody in that midfield, for me it would be Cyril Dessers, sadly. I don't want to call his name, but it is what it is. So in the game against South Africa, I want to say that I think maybe Calvin Bassey, just because of, for me, he was rock solid at the back. And Calvin Bassey, best player, by the way, to make it clear, best player in the game against South Africa, I would say Calvin Bassey. Calvin Bassey was the standout player for me. He was rock solid at the back. He made the fouls that he had to make, and even made forward runs at certain times. He was playing on the left side of the defense, and that move he made into attack was what ultimately led to him scoring that goal. Even though there was some controversy around the goal, but the goal stood. So yeah, Calvin Bassey for me was standout player against South Africa, and the worst performance against South Africa. Let me think now. That game that I watched. I honestly don't know. I think that everybody actually played slightly above average. Okay. I mean, there was an own goal in that game. So that has to be if I'm saying everybody played above average and someone scored an own goal, then it has to be the person who scored the own goal. It's unfortunate, and it's even more unfortunate that it was an own goal in this kind of situation. But Trustekong has to be the worst performance just by virtue of scoring the own goal, not for any other reason, right? So Trustekong worst performance against South Africa. Yeah, that own goal set us back, But yeah, that's it for the best and worst performance in both games. Now, let's go on to another prompt. Let's look at Eric Chelle's tactical approach to both games. And for me, I know I have said certain things about Eric Chelle's attacking preference, attacking approach to games and all before on my previous videos. So but I am thinking that Eric Chelle, I'm having second thoughts, because I don't think Eric Chelle is utilizing that Super Eagles squad to its full strength. I think that the 4-4-2 diamond or whatever he has been trying to do, or which he actually did in the game against Rwanda, was not helping the team capitalize on its strengths. Because when you play, I still feel like the best formation for that Super Eagles team, or this current Super Eagles squad, is a 4-3-3. You cannot have a Moses Simon and a Lookman and an Osimhen, at least before the Rwanda game started, and all of them are playing, and you're playing a 4-4-2. I don't know. I just think that, and maybe it's the way he is playing his own 4-4-2, because I think some of the wingers are playing too deep. then he's playing two, then he's leaving just two players to man the whole midfield, central defense. I think Eric Chelle's approach to games have been a bit questionable lately. And it doesn't help as well that Chan happened, Chan 2024, where he led the home base Eagles, and you know the story basically. So yeah, if I was confident about Eric Chelle's tactics, say 2, 3, 4 months ago, I'm not as confident as I'm no longer as confident right now, so to say. And yeah, well, that game, we won that game. I think that when we scored the goal, though, he handled the game better after we scored, which was something I felt he probably didn't handle exactly well in the Zimbabwe game. So yeah, on that I think he did fairly well, but generally I don't think he utilizes this team to their strengths. And then in the game against South Africa, I think that game, I actually feel like the tactical approach to that game was better. He gave the game what the game needed, what we needed, because there was no need to I think that outside of South Africa having an intense start, because for like the first 5-10 minutes, South Africa were kind of like the ones with more of the ball, and then we sort of grew into the game. Obviously home pressure, home crowd and everything. But outside of South Africa having the ball in the first 5-10 minutes, I thought we also took the game. I mean, we had to take the game to them. We needed it. And kudos to South Africa to knowing that we are more desperate for the points, although they also could qualify, after that game based on what happened in the other game and all of that. But because all the games were taking place on the same day, so kudos to South Africa for also taking the game to us, because maybe in some of their minds they could have said, okay, Nigeria need these 3 points, or they are potentially out, so let's sit back a bit, so-called pressure, and hit them on the break. No, they also, it was a very I would say it was an entertaining game, even though it was 1-1. I did think it was very feisty, also very physical, a lot of tackles. There was brawls in certain areas of the pitch between both sides. So I think Eric Chelle's tactical approach to South Africa game was I preferred it to the one in the Rwanda game. So yeah, I think he gave the game what the game needed, but ultimately we fell short. Now, enough of Eric Chelle and all of that. What is the current situation right now? As it is, we are not going to the World Cup, and I say it again. Now, there are certain people who still feel like we are going to make this playoff spot, and I think they are delusional, because I feel like certain people believe that this continental playoff spot is a human being that was made in a lab in FIFA headquarters in Geneva, and they sent that human being on a flight to NFF headquarters in Abuja, and he came and told the NFF people that, oh, my name is Continental Playoff Spot, and I was sent to Nigeria for Nigeria specifically. I think that's how certain people see this, because if you look at the table, you will know clearly that there is no way this Nigeria team will qualify, because the other team above us are way above, like we can't catch them anymore. So let us make peace with the fact that we are not going to the World Cup. I know it hurts, guys. I know it hurts, but it is what it is. I personally have made peace with it long ago, that we are not going to the World Cup. And for a lot of Nigerian football fans, this is the first time Nigeria is not going to the World Cup since our first appearance in 1994. So for everybody, not for a lot, for everybody, this is the first time we are going to miss out on back-to-back World Cup tournaments for the first time since 1994. So I know it hurts, but make peace with it. Make peace with it, because if you don't, you're just going to keep hurting yourself over I told myself, and I want to tell people, is that I cannot love this game more than the players who are playing it. So if the players who are playing this game, if the players who played Lesotho and could not be Lesotho at home, if those players do not want to go to the World Cup, if they don't want to go to the World Cup enough to the point where they should dismantle Lesotho at home, then I cannot love Nigeria being at the World Cup more than them. I don't know if I'm making sense. I cannot love Nigeria. I cannot love Nigeria going to the World Cup more than the players who are going to actually play in that World Cup and who are going to make it happen for themselves and for their own names to be written in history. Because how do you tell me that a player like Victor Osimhen, who is one of the best strikers in the world at the moment, and who for me has been top 5 strikers in the world in the past 3-4 years, is going to miss out on back-to-back World Cups for a country like Nigeria, in a World Cup where 9 African teams are guaranteed automatic slots? Okay, not automatic slot. Is it automatic slot? I think it's correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's 8 or 9. I think it's at least 8 automatic slots. Nigeria cannot get one. We used to get the automatic slot when it was 5, and we can't get one when it's 9. Again, we need to ask ourselves, I know we want to go to the World Cup, but do you deserve to go to the World Cup if you cannot beat Lesotho at home? Do you deserve to go to the World Cup if you cannot beat Zimbabwe home and away? You need to answer those questions. Pardon me, guys. You need to answer those questions. If we can't answer those questions, then we're not being honest with ourselves. Well, I don't want to say more than what has been said. You already know the situation, and this is where I'll round up today's video. So guys, thank you for watching. It is very disappointing that this review is basically me admitting and me letting you guys know that we are not going to go to the World Cup. But you know me, I will always say things as they are, especially when it concerns Nigerian football. And I think that's the problem that we have. A lot of people cannot just say the obvious things, So thank you guys for watching. Thank you to all my subscribers. Keep sharing my videos, keep watching, keep commenting. Anything I've said so far, let me know. If you want to fact check me, if I said anything wrong, if I said anything you disagree with, if I said anything you agree with, let me know in the comment section. And until I record my next video, it's bye for now. Ciao.